Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. If you are a returning viewer, I'm so sorry it has been a few weeks since my last video. My husband and I are in the process of purchasing a home, and living in Southern California, you can imagine how stressful that process is right now. We aren't directly affected by the Los Angeles fires, but even without that as a stressor, buying a home consumes a lot of my time, and it's challenging to focus on making videos for my lovely viewers. But I realized that a distraction might be just what I need to help me move through the stress, and hopefully you can enjoy it too. If you are new to my channel, this is the Chronicles of Bob, a channel where I discuss theories and concepts from Bob's Burgers using the perspective of my graduate degree in the social sciences. For this video, I would like to look at some fan theories that have caught my attention throughout the years.
I love the fan theories. I devour them.
There have been many fan theories that have gone viral either from being part of a YouTube video or part of a Reddit thread. There are obviously limitless theories that I could discuss, but I want to focus on 3 that are the most interesting to me, and at the end I will introduce a couple theories of my own that I haven't seen people discuss anywhere. So stay tuned until the end, and be sure to like and subscribe to the Chronicles of Bob for more great videos and ideas on Bob's Burgers. Theory number 1. Does Zeke like Tina? Tina has a bit of a will they, won't they relationship with Jimmy Pesto Jr. Their relationship is based on ease of proximity, meaning he lives close by, and it's easy for Tina to see him more regularly than some of her other classmates, but also because he has a boyish personality that Tina is seemingly attracted to. Considering that they are all 8th graders, this is all just preteen crushes, which could explain why Tina is interested in boys like Jimmy Jr. She likes boy bands and shows for children, so her idea of being with someone is healthily based on boys her age. So why does it seem like Zeke has a crush on Tina if she has shown an exclusive interest in his best friend and wrestling partner, Jimmy Jr.?
Zeke!
Well, I'd like to break it down. Zeke comes from an emotionally unstable household. His dad raises him in a trailer park where they live with his stepmom. Meanwhile, Zeke appears to be the person who takes care of his elderly grandmother the most out of everyone in his family. He is short and is yet to get his preteen growth spurt and expresses himself physically.
Huh, Jimmy Jr. and Zeke. Great.
Come here, JD. Come on.
Zeke.
Okay.
Zeke. Wait. Zeke, what are you doing up
All
there?
right, I'm coming at you from the top rope. Here I
Zeke,
come.
don't.
Wrestling with Jimmy Jr. frequently and using physical feats of strength can be an indicator that his family deals with stress by being physical rather than talking through their issues. That doesn't mean that there is abuse in Zeke's life, but that his dad would rather wrestle or play games than address emotional issues directly. In the episode Yes Without My Zeke, we learn that Zeke is one of the more unruly students at Wagstaff, proving that he is consistently getting into trouble, and this could lead him to being transferred to a disciplinary school. It could be suggested that Zeke gets himself in trouble because he is trying to be seen by his family and even school faculty in some cases. This stems from childhood neglect where parents are either too busy from work that they can't be there for their children emotionally, or from a general lack of interest in their children's lives, causing the child to misbehave and create trouble so the parents are forced to pay attention to them. This is a classic way for children to get attention from unavailable parents, because in a society where misbehaving as a child is unwelcome, the parents are forced to intervene, and that in some cases is the only time in a neglected child's life when the parent finally starts to pay attention to them. Sadly, it's usually not the kind of attention they are seeking, but the fact is that their child is given attention in one way or another, which is the ultimate goal.
Liars are liars and people are bad. Ba 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 ba. I am right.
There are a few moments throughout the show where we notice Zeke looking into the Belchers' lifestyle and perhaps feel a sense of envy for their stability and connectedness. I also notice on more than one occasion where Zeke is unimpressed by Jimmy Jr.'s attachment to Tina and could have feelings that his best friend isn't giving Tina the chance she deserves to be his number one priority. And this could be something of a pain point that Zeke uses as a reason to tackle and wrestle Jimmy Jr. so often, which could explain why it seems like Zeke is always interrupting conversations between Dina and Jimmy Jr. This theory makes its way into Reddit threads and has surfaced a few times in fan theories on YouTube. Personally, I think Zeke is exploring the possibility of being part of Tina's life, but in a long-term way, rather than trying to be her boyfriend in their formative middle school years.
Damn, Tina. Now I got a story to tell on our wedding day. You think that's not gonna happen, but I'll get you, girl. I'm gonna get you.
Zeke has probably learned a lot about Tina by being close to her through Jimmy Jr., and wouldn't want to jeopardize his friendship with Jimmy Jr. by trying to start something with Tina, and in turn could lose both of them. It's likely that Zeke is simply enjoying being around the Belchers and Tina because they are a pillar of strength as a family. Their parents are still married and run a successful restaurant. The siblings all get along and like to spend time together, and none of them get into trouble regularly. Being close to the Belchers is a great way for Zeke to build a sense of normalcy and understand the world through their perspective without jeopardizing friendships or future relationships. Theory number 2. Are the Belchers dead? So this theory is a doozy, and it's one that Lauren Bouchard has directly made reference to and criticized in an interview after the release of the Bob's Burgers movie.
The most extreme one, and it is not our favorite, but it is worth saying. The extreme one is that everyone's dead and they're ghosts.
I read this.
Yeah, and I don't. That one, I'm like, oh, you can do that for anything. That's not. That's just easy.
It would appear that according to the creators of the show, they definitely do not agree with this sentiment. But I wanted to add a bit to his response from this interview and maybe provide why I believe this is not a fair assessment of the show. Bob's restaurant is situated next to a mortuary, and in the pilot, we are led to believe that the show was originally intended to be about cannibalism. So now that the show has deviated from that initial idea,
Still serving human flesh? No.
Yes!
No!
it has been forced to adapt to its audience. Something more relatable that is still consistent with their original idea is death and grief.
What? What I'm saying is, I think you need to do some good grieving right now.
We all must grapple with and accept that life is precious and impermanent. We are all at the mercy of death, and all our loved ones are as well. The show has brought up on more than one occasion the challenging nature of grief and how we all must grieve, but we tend to do so on our own terms and in our own time. Bob and his father grieved for Bob's mother, Lily. Linda grieved for the loss of her neighborhood dog, Bottlecap. Meanwhile, Bob and Teddy have grieved for old friends who lived in the neighborhood and have passed away from old age. All throughout this grief is a stable and humble character who guides them to each recognize that death is a part of life.
Bob, Lynn, oh good, you're both here. Listen, I got something stuck in my craw.
Not a good time, Mort.
Well, it's never a good time for these things. You're my neighbors, and I love you. And I love your kids. I mean, up to a point. But I'm not a taxi!
And it is one that we all must come to accept. Mort is a character who has always played an important role in the show, and is a backbone character, allowing us to cope with some of the hardest moments we have to deal with as humans, which is the loss of our loved ones. Keanu Reeves said it best. We don't know what will happen to us after we die, except that the ones we leave behind will miss us.
What do you think happens when we die, Keanu Reeves?
I know that the ones who love us will miss us.
To say that all the Belchers are dead and the show is about a ghost family haunting the streets of Wonder Wharf is really a discredit to the idea that this show is really about life, and how living simply with the people you love is the most precious gift we can have.
What are they all doing?
I have no idea.
I love you guys.
Oh, God, they're starting again.
Rewatching episodes about life and death in this show really puts into perspective how much Lauren Bouchard loves life and wants people who watch it to feel lively and connected as they enjoy the show. This is inherently contrasted by the theory that they are all deceased, and I appreciated that perspective wholeheartedly. Theory number 3. Are the Belchers neurodivergent? I don't like to be specific about what I got my graduate degree in, but for the purposes of credibility in this video, I will reveal that I have a master's in community social work.
Yeah, doing more school after school? What are you, getting your master's?
While getting this degree, I learned how to diagnose clients and understand how to read and translate the DSM, or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. In case you are unfamiliar, or if you or anyone you know has been diagnosed with something like autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, or even post-traumatic stress disorder, that diagnosis has come from an edition of this manual. It is incredibly comprehensive, and you literally need a degree to understand how to read it. Most disorders are not simply made up of one or two facets. A person must display a number of symptoms in a specific time frame to be accurately diagnosed. And often this process of diagnosis could take years to be comprehensive enough to be considered an accurate diagnosis. So now that I've explained some of the sticky aspects of diagnosis, I'd like to discuss my thoughts on theories of neurodivergence in this show and how I consider them. If you are a person who is neurodivergent in any way, and you relate to any or all of the characters, I think that's fantastic. I would like to say that I am not neurodivergent, and I also relate to every character in one way or another. I think that it really speaks to the way the characters were written and how they play out and interact with one another that so many people can relate to them. If you were to look at certain episodes of the show, I would agree with some theories that in certain situations the characters have tendencies that would allow me to see a pattern of neurodivergence. For example, in the newest season, the episode For Whom the Doll Tows, Louise struggles to communicate something to her brother for fear of hurting his feelings. Indirect communication is a key behavior in neurodivergent people. Meanwhile, I have seen many people suggest the theory that Gene has ADHD. I think that there are certain moments throughout the show that could suggest that he does have a difficult time focusing on critical tasks like school and chores.
You have no idea what I've just been through. Do I have any toilet paper stuck to my buns?
On the other hand, he could simply be a young boy that wants to play and not have responsibilities. Either way you look at it, his character is exceptionally relatable, and sometimes that's enough. Meanwhile, the great question of Tina being autistic and Louise being a potential sociopath.
Ugh, you're the worst kind of autistic.
You can't even count.
Bob!
If you really wanted to break down the DSM and dig deep into the diagnosis of these characters and show ways these theories could be proven, it would take more time than I'm willing to give to that manual, and honestly, after you comb through these theories and try to prove their factual worth, I feel like you have sterilized the show and taken away the mystery and fun of it all. At the end of the day, the great thing about situational comedy cartoons is that each episode is a clean slate. You don't need to hold the same standard for every single episode. One day Louise could be autistic and the next she could be neurotypical. You don't have to see her the same way in every episode because that's the magic of a cartoon. In an interview with Lauren Bouchard, he mentions his fascination with how people watch animated television shows and how powerful cartoons are on the human mind.
2D animation in particular is a really beautiful medium that has a lot going on. What I always say is I'd like to hire a neurologist to study people watching animation. I'd love to find out what parts of the brain light up when you see Bob and his family versus if we showed you the same movie in live action.
If you try to pull apart the animation and look at it as though these people are real, you might strip away some of the magic, and it could feel a little unsavory at times. I think part of what makes this show so powerful for those of us who love it is that each character is relatable, regardless of their race, gender, age, or mental statuses. And I think that has caused neurodivergent and neurotypical people alike to all relate and enjoy it. And this really speaks to the creative and diverse writing that has pulled us all in as fans of the show. Now that I have given you my thoughts on some of the theories that other fans have created throughout the years, I'd like to add a couple of my own to the fray and see if my lovely viewers agree or think they're completely unhinged. My theory number 1. Mr. Caffrey is not dead. I have come to believe that Mr. Caffrey staged his own death and had his factory destroyed so he could live out the rest of his life in solitude on his private island, mentioned in the episode See Me Now.
Private island. You know, it could be Caffrey's island.
Mr. Caffrey of Caffrey's Taffy?
And Caffrey's bootleg liquor? I think we could all use a drink, right?
In the 7th season of the show, we start to learn a lot more about Teddy and some other side characters who have had a big influence on Seymour's Bay. Mr. Caffrey is one of those characters, even though we are told he has died in the first season. I know there was a dead body in the coffin in the first season when we are told that he has died.
This is so exciting! It's a dead body! Maybe the present's underneath.
But if we know anything about very wealthy people, it's that they can be a little odd, and maybe he asked Mort to use an unclaimed cadaver to take his place in the funeral.
Okay.
So you might be asking, why would Mr. Caffrey stage his own death, and where is he if he's still alive? Well, my answer to that is that he's the old man living on How About You Love Me Island in the castle Caffrey built for Gwendolyn.
Imagine this is your shins!
No, we got it.
The reason I think he staged his death is that he wanted to be left alone after all these years of being a wealthy candy tycoon and no one to share his life with, since the love of his life did not return his affections. He wanted to be left alone with his cattle on his island, enjoying what's left of his life in peace and solitude. That's my theory. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. My theory number 2. Mr. Fischoeder does not collect rent from Bob. Throughout our show, Bob and Mr. Fischoeder have an interesting dynamic.
Oh, that's right. It was a good idea. I love the fog.
Calvin likes to think of Bob as someone who he can look up to, almost like a father figure, even though Bob is young enough to be Calvin's son.
You remind him of our father for some reason. Maybe something about that arm hair.
He is always staring at it.
Yeah, I understand why. It's exactly our papa's arm hair.
He appreciates his work ethic and has a hard time understanding his family values.
Bob, I recall you raise either chinchillas or children. Which is it?
Children.
Good.
But more importantly, he doesn't appear to collect rent from the Belchers, and I have some theories as to why.
And Mr. Fischoeder, I know we talked about never doing this again, but if you can just give us 2 extra weeks this month on the rent.
I'm going to have to stop you right there, Bob.
Were you going to follow that up with anything?
No.
Bob is a sort of glue that holds the town of Seymour's Bay together. He is centrally located near Wonder Wharf and appears to be financially stretched, but has busy weeks and days when important events come around, like naval dockings and when the wharf is busy. The wharf is completely operated by carnies, and I've gotten the impression on more than one occasion that Calvin really has no control over the carnies and how they choose to run the wharf, leaving Calvin in a predicament where he can only collect the proceeds from the shops, but has no control over how the wharf itself is contained, which is why it seems to be falling apart, and he doesn't have the ability to fix it, even if he wanted to. But that doesn't explain why he lets Bob get away with not paying rent. My theory around this has to do with his kids and the importance of Bob's Burgers, the restaurant, as a whole. He knows that most of the people who have children will likely raise their kids to leave Seymour's Bay and find more fulfilling jobs outside of the area when they become adults. If this happens, the town will eventually succumb to gentrification and fall into the hands of greedy investors, which is what almost happened in the 4th season when his younger brother Felix tried to buy it out from under him.
They're tearing down Wonder Wharf to build condos.
You weren't supposed to hear that. It's for the best. You understand, right, honey?
Damn you all to hell!
Yep.
I think that the money Bob puts towards rent for Mr. Fischoeder each month is secretly kept, and the idea is Calvin will give the Belcher children a trust to purchase Wonder Wharf and keep it intact, and hopefully improve it once he is no longer in the picture. The kids have already developed a relationship with the Carneys through Mickey, and he saw how close they became in the Bob's Burgers movie.
Come on.
Oh, I hope you're happy with your short squared banana! Your only friend now, Mickey!
So making improvements to the wharf would be easier for them, considering they have an established relationship, which at this point would have gone back decades. So that's my second theory. So I hope you enjoyed my fan theories, and let me know in the comments what you think about my ideas. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Chronicles of Bob for more great videos on Bob's Burgers, fan theories, and more. Thank you for your support, and until next time, enjoy the show.